it is if every cell in my body was, yay!
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly like my energy's just dancing. Hi, everybody. We're back. We're going to talk about healing today. I think it was maybe 2 episodes ago. We said we were going to make a whole episode itself on just healing. So here we are. We're going to do that. What is the first thing we want to say about healing?
What most people doesn't do is they talk a lot about healing, but they starting from the point from healing, but first you have to know what sickness is or what not feeling well is. Sickness you have to hear in the wide sense of the word sickness. Sickness is not only physically sick, so also feeling not well mentally, emotionally, or physically. In those three realms, or in our world, the mental and the emotional belongs to the same realm. A person belongs to three realms. We talked also 2 episodes ago about the microcosmos and the macrocosmos. And in both cosmoses, we have three different realms. We have the cosmic realm, we have the physical realm, and we have the spiritual realm. And so the cosmic realm for us is our soul. The physical realm is, of course, our body. And the spiritual realm is our mental and emotional part. The cosmic realm, so our soul, can only be soul, cannot be something different, and cannot be sick. You can not use it completely. You can put it in a cage and don't feed it, so it doesn't yell that much, but it can only be a soul, cannot become something different. The most of us have emotional, mental, and or physical problems. Those problems happen most of the times because we are in patterns. We are patterns that doesn't serve us, that we thought that they are normal, that we thought that we do the right things. It also has a lot to do with how you grown up, with what kind of parents you have. Not that they did it wrong in the sense of not good parents. They just thought they did the right things and that are not always right for you. Do you want something add about this, Robin?
I would like to touch a little bit, just to back up a little bit when you're talking about the soul. I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast. We have so many conversations, I can't remember which one's where, but I do want to touch on the fact, excuse me, that your soul can be fragmented. We call the pieces as part of the healing. So your soul does not get sick per se, but there is soul healing in as much as if you're not thinking about yourself as broken, which I do not. I don't think of healing as something that needs to be fixed. It's a transformation process that happens from the inside out in many, many layers. So to me, healing is reclaiming and remembering the perfection that you already are, that you've forgotten about, that you've hidden. And when we experience various traumas, little fragments of our soul splinters off and it retreats to a place where it feels safe. And then we operate from that base with that fragment of our soul missing, and we create patterns that we think is our truth. And we become so enmeshed in those patterns that we do not recognize that it's not our whole self or our true self. It's not even a conscious, aware choice that we're making. So we've established unconscious and subconscious patterns, and then we build our life around it. And the more out of balance that we are with our true center because we're missing soul fragments, then we've set patterns in that attract all these experiences and all these people who really are not in frequency or in harmony with who we actually are. So it creates more and more sickness. Sickness is imbalance. It's an imbalance. All healing that needs to be done is a result of imbalance on one level, two levels, maybe three levels, maybe all of them. We have to we don't have to, but I do approach healing in layers. Like you were touching on your parents. Your parents did the best that they could. It's not because we experienced a trauma, it's not your parents' fault. They were doing their best. And they were giving their best as they understood situations in the moment. And that's all we can ask of anybody. You know, looking back, we always have much better awareness than when we're in it at the time, hindsight, right? But I wanted to say there as well, your parents, no matter how many siblings you have, a lot of us, we think, oh, well, we all have the same parents. We all grew up in the same house. We all went to the same school. We all had the same experience. You did not. You didn't have the same parents. You didn't have the same situation. Your parents, when parents parent their first child, is completely different than how you parent your second child. You've learned so much with the first child, you're so much more relaxed with the second child. That's just an example. Financial situation that your parents are in could be completely different from one sibling to the next. That changes everybody's experience. Also, the older sibling doesn't have siblings. It's just that child and adults. The second child automatically comes in. There's already a peer. So the situation is completely different. That nobody's experiencing the same thing. And so I hear siblings oftentimes negate the other sibling's perspective because I was there and that's not what happened. That's not what happened for you, but it is what happened to them. For example, my two youngest children, when I got divorced, the my middle child was 7 and my youngest child was 3. That is a completely different experience for those two people. Not just, oh, my parents got divorced and everybody had the same, it didn't affect everybody the same way. Completely different. Do you want to add to that?
Yes, I was just thinking about um, the parents, the example that Robin gives out of her own life, but that the way your system is functioning, the way your brain is functioning, the way you're emotional, you are born as an empath, and you are not only the product of your parents, you also have a soul, and how fragmented is your soul. And that can be, as Robin said, from a trauma, that can be from an emotional trauma, mental trauma, but also from a physical trauma. So even from birth, when you have had a very hard birth, then it can be that even from that time on, you already have a fragmented soul. And as you see that when you look at your own siblings, when you have them, that not all siblings react the same as when something happens in the family or at school or in every situation. Empaths, for instance, react way more stronger because they are way more sensitive. And people who, at least that's what we're thinking, likes to see these videos are most of the times more empaths. Or perhaps you can also say that are people who are energetically more open. And therefore, everything what is said outside hits deeper inside. Because that is the way we have learned in these times that we have to deal with things. Many things we call mine that aren't mine. For instance, an opinion, somebody says something about me, and I start to believing that, then I took something on what wasn't mine. And all those things makes that your energy isn't in balance anymore. And that is what, when we talk about sickness or not feeling well or traumatized, or is that your energy is not balanced anymore. And also when you start believing, for instance, when your mother is saying something that you are not a very pretty girl, just say something. And so for instance, your mother is saying something like that to you. When you are vulnerable at that very moment, then you start to believe that. And so you made something what was your mother's, you made it yours at that moment. And when you start to believing, then that is where the focus of your energy is going towards. That means that you're out of balance. That means that part of you where you keep your focus on, and then you have to go back again to our last video where we were talking about Aini. Nothing ever goes one way. So when you are focused on not being pretty, you will get that energy back. So you will getting back um, in the same sense. You will get confirmation in that sense because your focus is on not being pretty. So you will getting back as a confirmation that you are not pretty. And that energy goes on and on and on, but that is a negative spiral. That is a spiral what will keep you more and more and more out of balance. And do you want to react on it?
I do, because we take on what's not ours right from birth. Right from birth. As soon as we take our first breath, we've automatically taken on the karma of our family, the lineage of our family. So none of that is ours personally, but we've already got that. That's already part of our coding, if you will. So from there, that's already unconscious patterns that we are working with that create an imbalance. Okay. And then we branch out into our community. And we also take that on where we live on the planet, our region, our country, all of our community, our culture. We take all of those on as our own when we're born. So there's a potential for, even if it's not like a traumatic birth, birth itself is a trauma that we experience from a soul level. And when we come in, we automatically have those imbalances that we are meant to work through. It's what we agreed to do when we came here. Um, and so it's not necessarily always a trauma or soul fragments that we're trying to heal, but we need to look at our ancestors, our lineage. What did they experience? What's left? What is in my cellular coding that I meant to bring into harmony, really, is the purpose. And as an empathic person within the family, we tend to be dismissed a lot, overlooked, invalidated. Your feelings, you're so sensitive. You just make mountains out of molehills, and We see things other people don't see. We understand things and absorb things on levels that other people are not aware of. And so, as an empathic people, I believe we have been given a language of unworthiness just programmed into us that we are completely unaware of. It's just so fundamentally part of how we've been allowed to express ourselves that we've just taken it in as our own, and it creates so much imbalance. And I personally feel this is where everybody as a whole in general is feeling so restless, is because that right there has come to a point where people are like, something has to change. I think people are recognizing right now that it's not mine, but what do I do with it? And so I think that's a very important level of healing, is to, well, retrieve your soul fragments, but also to continue to explore what you've taken on through your lineage as well. In a family, we tend to keep it as ours. We try to healing everybody around us at our own expense. We take a lot of it in. And then, depending on what we're taking in and what patterns we're setting in, what we're calling our own and keeping our own, you have different ailments that show up. What shows up is telling you exactly, your body is telling you exactly what you need to look at, what needs to be healed. And by healing, I mean restructuring, remembering, reclaiming the perfection that you came in with, that what you already are, not trying to fix something that's broken.
When I can dive a little bit in still in the empath, the person who are born as an empath, is most of those people doesn't see themselves in other ones. So they think they are different. And they are different. They are just structured differently. Their brain is wired differently. So when you are an empath, please do not try to become like everybody else in your surroundings. Be you. And that is the most important healing part for you, is finding out who you is. And when you find out all those different layers of what you exist of, and seeing that nothing of that is wrong, but that is perfect for you. You are wired perfectly for the one you are. And when I'm going back to the ancestors and to your parents, you are born as an empath in your family with the perfect, what Robin was saying already, with the perfect character structures. The qualities you have are perfectly. So go with that where your qualities are. You are the perfect imperfection, like everybody else. And go with where you are good at. Go with your talents. Go with what you like. And even if that's not something that is normal in your family, or that people think it's stupid to do, or whatever opinion from somebody else, when it's good for you, then it's good for you. And all your flaws, it's you're not wired for your flaws. So don't try to become good in where you're not good at. Be good in where you are good at. That's what you have to do here in this world. And then a lot of troubles from the healing perspective already flows away, because you become more in balance. Your energetical balance becomes better. And because you are doing for where you are wired for, your energy goes up, is going in the higher frequencies.
And what you just described is what we call authentic feminine. You are resonating exactly with the frequencies and the energies and the vibrations and the plan that you came here to do and be. And when you are in that authentic core, there's a balance and a stillness that you can maintain. And when you're in there, imbalance doesn't happen. And I think we've mentioned previously that healing perpetuates itself. And this is how, because when you are, it's just strong in your core and your stillness and you're comfortable in there, and things that happen around you and people say things to you, it doesn't impact you. And you stay in that balance, and being within that balance just automatically perpetuates other healing, because healing is all about balance. What needs to be healed is a result of being out of balance. Out of balance with what? Out of balance with your own truth of who you are. Not how you compare. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself. Compare. Do not compare. There is no comparison from me to you, from you to the person sitting next. There is no comparison. Look how different we look on the outside. That's your first clue. There's no comparison. You're doing that. I'm doing this. That's it. And I think in families and communities, we tend to set up a lot of comparison. If I could just be more like that, it would be better. And that's so very much not true. That is exactly the harmful pattern. And those kind of thoughts are what establish patterns that create more imbalance, because the further you go into those thoughts and establishing those patterns, then the further away from your true core that you are. And sooner or later, you just don't even recognize what that core was. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you are sick or have mental issues or emotional problems, or you have been traumatized very badly, that's when somebody did to you, nothing of this is about right or wrong, or is about that you didn't do something not right, or that you are not good enough, or that you are. It's nothing about it. Everybody, there is no person on this whole world, even Dalai Lama or some other guru or a high priest, or everybody has its own issues. And those issues belongs to this world, belongs to living in this world. And it's all about how you deal with it. And the way we have learned dealing with it is not the healthiest way. We have learned to deal with it, to not give it attention, to not sit with it. We call it bad. We call it wrong. We give it all negative energy because we think it is wrong. But while Robin was telling that the birth is your first trauma, and when you go directly with your feelings inside it and make it a heavy load, making, oh yeah, oh there, that's why I feel today so bad, because of my mother this and my father that, and it was so heavy. Then you make something what wasn't that bad, you make it way more bad. And therefore, every time you think about every trauma in this sense, you make it worse. So when the trauma happened, it had a kind of energy, and everything, every time you think about it in the heavy way, then you make it more heavy. So it can be that when the trauma happened, the energy was here, but 20 years later, you make it heavy, 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 and now the energy is way more in a low frequency, and therefore the trauma is over years has become worse instead of better. And that's because the way we have learned to deal or not deal with it. We try to forget it. We try to put it under the carpet. We try to run away from it, especially when it's about mental and emotional traumas. And when it's about physical trauma or physical sickness, we run to a doctor and he has to solve our problems. And I'm not trying to say don't run to a doctor, especially when you have a real sickness, but there is nobody else than you that can heal you. A doctor can only do parts of the healing part. And the more you sit with what is going on with you, and that what is going on with you can tell you exactly where it is, where you need more attention, where you need balance. And you have
Can I
to,
pop in before we get
of
to
course,
that part? Can I pop in?
of
'Cause
course.
I love what you're saying right here, and I think it's just such a concise explanation of I really would like to point out that what Clementine is describing here in these last few minutes is shadow work. It's what we are calling the shadow. Your shadow is not something that needs to be rejected or a lot of people was like to work on your shadow so you can get rid of it. And I would like to say that your shadow, what is in the shadow, is anything that hasn't been recognized. It like hasn't been claimed, it's been rejected, has been oppressed, repressed, all of those things. At the same time, some of the things that are in the shadow are kind of good because if you think about walking out in the bright, hottest part of the day, you're pretty happy to come across a patch of shade. And sometimes your shadow work is the shade. It's giving you, those pieces of ourselves that we've rejected or haven't claimed or just wish that we were like the person beside us. Those we need to reclaim what we are rejecting. When we do that, when we look at somebody else and we go, I should be more like that, you have completely rejected who you are. And then that goes into the shadow because you don't want it. So some of the things that you call shadow work that people enter into thinking you're trying to overcome it and get rid of it, some of your shadows, you're trying to claim them back. It's things that you put away in there as a reaction. What do we call those things? As a defense mechanism, as a child experiencing not even necessarily trauma, just something you didn't understand because you had a child's mind. Okay, and then you put it in a pattern like, oh, the reason I'm like this is because when I was 10, my mom said I wasn't pretty. And so now you're still, that's on you. That's on you. That's not on your mom. You're a big girl now. You have maintained that pattern. Like you say, you look for experiences that confirm that belief. And so that's on you. So in this particular instance, to go into the shadow is to reclaim parts. So shadow work is not always intense and negative and having to go back and it's not that process. And as we have mentioned, we have entered into an era of the gentle process, which again, that's what our community is about. We are bringing the gentle process. So visit us on the website. We're also going to throw that disclaimer in here that we are not medical professionals. We are not giving medical advice. We are giving spiritual advice. Go see a doctor if doubts. Go see your doctors. We are not replacing your medical treatment or advice.
Absolutely
Thanks.
not. And shadow work is feminine. It's the masculine is the light the shadow is the feminine force. And so when you see the feminine force, the shadow, as the force where everything is, where everything lives, what is not manifested yet. And because of when you put traumas in your shadow, it has not been manifested in the light. And so therefore you have to go into the shadows, just cleaning up your shadow parts.
I call that tending the soil because if you think of the feminine and the shadow and the darkness, right, is the soil. What's in the soil is the seeds.
I was seeing the womb.
The womb
The
feeds
womb.
the soil, right?
So everybody, also every man, has the energy of the womb. Not every man
Yes.
has, of course, a physical womb or none. And even the women who don't have a physical womb anymore, doesn't have a uterus anymore, still have the energy of the womb. And that is where we are talking about. And you can, of course, the uterus and the womb, they have a kind of the same function. So, but when you look at the womb and want to make your room as the most beautiful room there is, it's cleaning up everything, every rubbish, what you don't need anymore, what doesn't serve you anymore, you have to bring towards the light. And bringing towards the light means sitting with it and looking at it. And that doesn't mean that when this is a trauma, I look from a distance to it. I'm not going inward. I'm not going in the trauma again and feeling the same feelings again and having the same remembering. It is just looking at it and put it in the light and asking yourself and asking the trauma, how can we make this that it is gonna serve me? So there are many of your traumas, many of heavy experiences are there also for you to experience that parts of you can come out that will serve you for the rest of your life. So instead of a very bad thing that happened, try to transform it in something that is the most beautiful flower there is.
Right here, I would like to throw in here, right here, is you're talking this is how I describe when I'm talking to people. Um, you become the observer. So when you're doing your shadow work, you do not go back and just revisit the emotional turmoil and sit in there and re-experience all of that again. That is not the point. The point is to transcend and you become the observer and you look and say, "Oh, that's how I felt. Oh, that explains this feeling," but without going into it. Now, I also have a point of view where it's very important to go into your emotions and be willing to go in and sit in the dark and sit in that uncomfortable feeling. It's not the same thing as when you're doing your shadow work and you're revisiting traumas. I'm not describing that. So when you're doing your shadow work and you go in, you want to go in as the observer, not as re-experiencing. Why would you want to re-traumatize yourself? 'Cause that's all you're gonna achieve. And there's a saying here, I don't know if you have that over there, but there's a saying here, you can't solve a problem on the same level of the problem. You can't approach your problem on the level of the problem. You have to come up with an higher perspective. And so that's true with your shadow work. You don't want to go sit in there and re-traumatize yourself. That is not the point, and I see a lot of shadow work, you just bring it up and revisit and revisit and you are never gonna get out of that cycle. So you need to find a way of just becoming the observer. Observe the emotions. Don't sit in them and feel them all again. Just recognize that's part of the pattern and then identify. Yeah.
Said for me a very important word that that you're running around in circles. And we all are running around in circles in behaviors that we have learned as a child, that we have learned and because we thought that is the right thing to do. And also what Robin was just describing as a response of trauma. And that is so important to understand and learning these cycles, this behavior, what you have, what is not serving you, and that can be a thing in thought process, the way you thinking about whatever it is, even if it's so big as life is. All the things you think that you know how it functions. We know, or we don't go there because then this and this will happen. You don't know that. That is something from the future. You don't know in the here and now how the future will react. You have to stay in the here and now. And many people try to make the future with everything what happened in the past. So the future will be the past. When that is the way you look at the world and look at your life. So you have to learn your behavior, your thinking, your process, your way, your patterns in your life are functioning, and you have to stop them when those patterns doesn't serve you, and change them around in patterns that serve you. Patterns are not bad. Patterns are even good, but they should serve you.
So there's two things I want to add right here. Patterns, layers. We keep talking about psychological and emotional and physical. Before you have a physical symptom, you have an emotion that's attached to it. That strong emotion is what manifests the physical ailment that matches it. Before you have that emotion, you have a thought. So there are right there 3 levels to address when you are looking at healing that one particular, I hurt my elbow. What does that mean? That means you had a really strong emotion that put that into play and you kept it there long enough until a physical symptom showed up. Well, prior to that emotion, what puts that emotion into play, what keeps that emotion into play is your thoughts. You see, and we perhaps have generated these thoughts from old conditioning from childhood. You see, when you go into your shadow work, you can identify these. Now you take the observer seat, you identify patterns, and you heal them from layers and layers. You're not just going to go to one session and go, it was this, poof, it's gone, it's done. Because once you release that, then you got to revisit the other levels of what did that affect. And there are other beliefs and patterns that are in play. And this is what you're talking about, where you have to take out the rubbish. Okay, so we're doing this in layers and layers and layers, and you're going to revisit it. And one of the things that people judge themselves, I thought I had already done that. You did at the level that you were at. Now you're at this level. Should really, honestly, it should feel a little bit differently than the last time you did it. If you sit with it a second, it will have a different flavor. And that's what you're meant to look at, not the whole package. It's like, if this is showing up again, it's because I haven't resolved something, not that I haven't resolved any of it and I got to start over again. It is, I forgot this little string hanging out over here and let me tighten up that loose string. And that's all it is, maybe that one loose end. And so again, with the right and the wrong and the should haves and could haves and wonderful. So you're just gonna beat yourself up and that's not helping. So I love everybody to bring some compassionate awareness to your shadow work. Do not judge yourself or anybody around you either for that matter. Just leave the judgment out, starting with what's right, what's wrong, what's good, and what's bad.
I
Drop
want to I want to break
that.
in very shortly when you go already in that direction. I'm not completely agreeing, or I see it sometimes happening differently when you say about the layers that you have first a thought and then an emotion and then the physical layer. Sometimes something happens, and by some character structures in the way how people work, it goes easier to the physical part, and by other people easier to the mental, or easier to the emotional part. It is also a little bit of how you are wired in um, where you express what is going on with you the easiest. And some people
Mhm.
express everything physically. And that doesn't mean that there is a whole lot baggage already mentally and emotionally. There is, of course. But for me, it's always an expression, or let me say it differently. Something happened, and where it expresses the most, it always expresses in every level, but where it expresses the most depends on the person. One person more physically, and one person gets elbow pain, and the other person gets a heart attack or cancer or an arthrosis on a hip. And so also where it is in the body is not always um, um, we we have learned when we're talking about a body that a shoulder has nothing to do with your digestive system. In the way I work already 40 years with people, I can say there is very direct relationships. I dare not say anymore that it's not connected. I always say everything can comes from everything. When I'm healing, for instance, something in myself, it doesn't matter where it is. Most of the time, I hope it is somewhere where I can put my hands on. And then I put my hands on so I can focus easier to the place where I have my pain, or I will put my hand on the shoulder, then it's easier for you to see. I had my hands on my abdomen. For instance, when my, how do you call it,
Clavicle?
clavicle is painful, or the shoulder, let's say the shoulder next, I put my hands there, and then it's for me way easier to focus inwards to going to that hand. So it's
Mhm.
not your hand. This hand, your hand is only a focus point. And then you can start talking. Oh, yeah. So I feel that it is painful. Why is it painful? What do you try to express? What is beneath? Why is it happened? And it, the answers you can get, it can sometimes be shocking how I even want to call it intelligence. That there is so much intelligence in your tissue that is able to express what is going on with you. And that most of the time it has nothing to do with your shoulder, with your anatomy, I mean.
Mhm.
And so you can, I was talking before that when we have something, we run to a doctor. That is not wrong, but do these things also with yourself. Well, then the healing that the doctor wants to do, or therapist, or whomever it is, that work goes way better. It works because it's you that prepare yourself for being ready to be healed. When you do nothing, it's way more difficult. You look as if you want to react, Robin.
I do. I want to say that going to the doctor is not, we're not saying don't do it, and we're not saying one is better than the other or even preferable. In tandem is absolutely wonderful, because going to the doctor is going without, looking without. You need to marry that with going within. So laying your hand on and listening to what your body is telling you, you'll get a lot of insights. But this is the part that will allow you to receive the healing from your doctor. I mean, if you're going to go seek it, you want to be open to receive it at the highest level. So if you're preparing yourself in this manner, sitting with yourself, and knowing that you're opening you up to just a much more successful experience with your doctor as well. So it's not either or, it's not good or bad, it's not better or worse, it's in tandem. Like you and me, Clementine, from the Earth perspective and from the ozone perspective, right? Like us, tandem is good. You want to come from both. We need to, I think it's a time, probably globally, but it's a time to move away from the dichotomy thinking, the either, the or, and go to the and. If we can come to an and perspective, do things in tandem, why not? Be kind to yourself. It's going to give you a gentle process.
So it's important that you heal yourself. So when we talk about healing, there is nobody else who can heal you than yourself, but you can have help with it. And everybody in the world needs help. Try to do it alone. It is possible, but it is way more difficult. We are on YouTube and we have to be careful by saying, don't go to the doctor. That's wrong, but that's also not what we mean. When every doctor and every therapist has its place, and use those people wisely, in the sense, use those people when they can help you. So let yourself help on the level where you need it. But don't, what I'm trying to say, and I think Robin also tried to say, don't put everything out there. So I can complain, especially 10 years, 20 years back, there were many people who I had the feeling they come in my practice, and when I'm thinking again a shoulder pain, they want to put their arm here and they want to come 10 days later and pick it up again, and then everything should be healed. And of course, I didn't like that at all. Of course, I was already then also very sensitive, and I felt that the shoulder wasn't the problem, but the person who carries that shoulder. And so I needed the whole human, not only the body part. But many people in those times thought that way, that they used the body like they used a car. So take the car to the garage and they have to do whatever they do, and then you pick it up and everything is functioning again. And that's not the way a human is working. A human is the wholeness of those three realms where I was talking about in the beginning, at the cosmic realm, the spiritual realm, and the physical realm. And that system has to work in balance, and human being is everything that, and everything works together, And everything, I dare even to say that everything is an expression of the same. And because it is another expression, it has a little bit a different function. And so the form it expresses in body, because we want to be able to walk over this world, because we want to search some food, and we also like to love. And that are the most important parts of our life. To being able to love, and for being able to love, we need first ourselves, and then we can look around when we love ourselves enough. And I know I said that on purpose, but when we first love ourselves and then look outside of us for that special someone who is walking around somewhere, that is the main purpose of our life. Everybody is looking for love. Why I'm talking about now about love is loving yourself first and loving yourself deeply is one of the best healing you can have in your life. When you love yourself, and even when you are able to love yourself unconditionally, then there is no much in life anymore what can hurt you, even not mentally and emotionally. That's quite clear, I think, for everybody. But physically, even also, it's way more difficult to become sick when you are really loving yourself unconditionally. Robin.
Now, what I've experienced with clients, Clementine, is like your client wants to come in and my elbow hurts, fix it, I'm out, I'm gone because it doesn't hurt anymore. Nothing changed underneath. Didn't address any of the patterns that put that into play. It will come back. It just will, because it's the patterns underneath that manifested that physical ailment. And what you're saying now is unconditionally loving yourself. A lot of us don't know how to do that. That's the old programming. That is the shadow work that people are avoiding because they don't realize that those programs that are in place are not even their own. It's just conditioning that they've accepted from the past, childhood, last year, whatever it is. And you've taken it on. So I'm going to send everybody to the website, because that's the part that we help you with, is how do you can't just go, oh, okay, I'm going to unconditionally love myself now. You don't even know what that feels like. You don't know what it looks like. You have no point of reference. That's where we come in. Visit us at the website. We need a circle. We are building a circle. Stop being funny, but we are. Please, please come and see us. We're so anxious to establish our circle, and it's just the sisterhood that comes out of a community like this. Unless you've been blessed to be part of it, you have no idea what our excitement is all about. But we are so excited to start working with people. So please do visit us at the website. What is it, Clementine?
www.authentic-feminine.com/circle.
/circle. Yes, join the circle. And you be safe to love yourself unconditionally.
Absolutely. When I talk about my own experience about loving myself, it feels like the biggest stone you can imagine that fell from my shoulders. When I realized that I really can deeply love myself. And by saying that, and as sensitive as I am, I feel directly what kind of reaction this gives in my body. It is if every cell in my body was, yay!
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly like my energy is just dancing. This is just a
Yes,
dance. Yes.
they
Yes.
start dancing and cheering, and Imagine what loving yourself can do with your health. When every cell in your body is starting cheering and dancing, that means functioning better. Every part of your body is working better. And also all the parts that have connection with emotions and your mental part, because many emotion has to do with hormones, has to do with how do you digest. So everything hangs so tightly together. Love in general, and especially loving yourself, is, as I said before, and as Robin also said before, it's one of the most healing parts there is in your life. Okay, thank you very much again for listening. And when you are still here to the end, and we will see you.
Thanks for staying to the end. Do the buttons.
Do the
Like,
buttons.
subscribe, all the things. Yeah, everybody. You got to
Push
do
the
the
L
buttons. You know what I also want to say, Clementine? My friends, we have a tendency, we're just talking, and we leave like we leave a lot of our subject matter just kind of hanging out there a little bit. If you want more clarity, please give us a comment. We'll answer those questions because we know we're not always so clear. So please ask us any questions. If you have a suggestion, what you'd like to hear our perspectives, we'll make a podcast if you want to hear about a certain thing. Other than that, like, subscribe, do the bell thing, and you'll get a notification every time I don't know, do they get a notification if we send shorts, or do they get a notification on just the podcasts? Anyway, you'll get notifications. Hit the bell. We'll figure it out. Just hit the bell. You'll get notifications. We'll answer your questions, all the things.
We figure it out together with you.
We will all figure it out together. Until then,
till
see you
next
next week.
time. Bye.